You hear a song you haven't thought about in years. It comes on while driving, and suddenly the melody is there before you choose to recall it. Something happens that has nothing to do with music. You feel pulled towards something behind it, a time, a version of your life, a feeling you cannot name but unmistakably real. The present becomes less important. Then it passes, and you are left with warmth and something like loss, missing a time that no longer exists. Most people assume this is sentimentality. They assume the past feels better because it was better. What is actually happening is far more precise, a mechanism your brain uses for a specific purpose. By the end of this video, you will understand why the past nostalgia shows you is not the past that actually happened, why that distortion is intentional, and why feeling nostalgic means your brain is doing something sophisticated. Stay until the end, because the final insight may be the most counterintuitive finding in memory research. The word nostalgia was coined in 1688 by a physician named Johannes Hofer, combining Greek words for homecoming and pain to describe what he believed was a medical condition, an illness affecting soldiers who wasted away with grief for their home country. For nearly 300 years, nostalgia was classified as a pathology, a disease, something to be eliminated. Therapeutic approaches included leeches and opium. It was only in the late 20th century that the psychology shifted. Researchers noticed people who reported feeling nostalgic also reported elevated mood, stronger sense of meaning, and greater social connection. The emotion classified as a disorder was functioning as a resource. Konstantin Sedekides at the University of Southampton spent over 2 decades mapping nostalgia's profile, and what his research reveals is the opposite of the clinical view. Nostalgia consistently correlates with higher self-esteem, stronger personal identity, greater social support, and reduced anxiety. People who allow themselves to feel nostalgic are doing better than those who suppress it. But here's the question most accounts skip. If nostalgia is beneficial, why does it hurt? Why does remembering good things produce an emotion with the texture of grief? Your brain does not store the past the way a camera stores footage. Every memory is stored in fragments scattered across brain regions, and every time you recall something, your brain reconstructs it in real time. Remembering is active, not passive. Every reconstruction is shaped by your current emotional state and your relationship to the self who lived through the original experience. You do not retrieve the past. You rebuild it, and during that rebuild, your brain chooses which fragments to emphasize and which to leave in shadow. Nostalgia exploits this deliberately. What it selects for is not accuracy, but meaning. The memories it retrieves most powerfully contain high emotional charge, strong relational context, and identity coherence. Moments where you felt clearly like yourself. Nostalgia strips out tedium, anxiety, and frustrations. It keeps the warmth and belonging. This is why the past nostalgia shows you is better than what actually happened. Not because you are fooled, but because your brain is selecting the evidence most useful to you right now. That evidence answers a question your brain is quietly asking. Have you ever been okay? Have you ever belonged somewhere, mattered to someone, felt at home? Nostalgia is your brain's answer. Yes, here. It happened here. The reason the pain inside nostalgia is not a flaw is that this emotion is not backward-looking. It is forward-facing. Research by Tim Wildschut alongside Sedekides showed that inducing nostalgic recall reliably increased participants' optimism about the future. People who spent time with a nostalgic memory showed greater willingness to engage with challenges and lower existential anxiety than control participants. Nostalgia reminds you, with evidence from your own history, that life has already had meaning. The pain comes from the gap. The warmth of the memory and the irreversibility of that time create a specific ache every human being recognizes. You cannot go back. The version of you who lived through the memory no longer exists in the same form. The people in it may have drifted or disappeared. The feeling was real, but the moment is closed. This is why nostalgia carries mourning alongside warmth. You're grieving something real that you cannot touch again. Now here is the finding almost nobody discusses. Nostalgia is not random. It is triggered. Loneliness triggers it more reliably than almost any other state. So does uncertainty about the future. So does the perception that your life lacks meaning. Nostalgia is what happens when something in your present feels insufficient, and your brain reaches back to remind you that insufficiency is not permanent, that there is evidence in your own experience of connection and purpose, even when you cannot feel those things right now. This changes what it means to feel nostalgic. It is not weakness. It is a signal that something specific is missing: connection, meaning, or a sense of who you are. And it arrives with resources, because the memory it retrieves is proof that these things are possible for you. Not abstractly. With clear evidence from your own life, point 3 things you can do. First, stop apologizing for nostalgia. The message that it is indulgent or weak is not supported by research. Allowing it to unfold rather than suppressing it is associated with better well-being on every measure psychologists track. Second, use nostalgia as a diagnostic. When it appears, ask what is missing. If what you miss is a friendship, that points toward a need for that quality of connection now. If what you miss is a time your work felt meaningful, that is information about your relationship to purpose. The memory is not the destination. It is the map. Third, allow what nostalgia points toward to move forward. The warmth belongs to a capacity that still exists in you. The ability to connect, to feel at home, to find meaning in small moments. These are not locked in the past. Your brain is showing them because they are still possible. The memory is evidence of what you can feel, not a record of what you can only feel behind you. You have been living with nostalgia your whole life, and most of what you were told about it was wrong. It is not sickness. It is not the past holding you. It is one of the most sophisticated systems your brain runs, using your own history to protect your sense of meaning. The ache is real, but what nostalgia points toward is not behind you. Leave a comment. What memory does your nostalgia return to most? You do not need to explain it. Just notice what it contains. And if you want to understand another invisible system your brain runs without your permission, the next video is already there.